The 6th of August 2020 draws near. With it, a new edition of Sony's StateofPlay series. Wait, that's the wrong footage. Limestone Games is one of the few lucky developers to be featured with their game Aeon Must Die, or AMD. That won't be confusing. You'd expect the developers to be happy about all the additional exposure, and you would be totally wrong. All they see is a reminder of all the unpaid overwork, abuse, corruption and manipulation. A reminder of their former workplace they left in June of 2020. Yes, 2 months after almost everyone left, the game gets a big blowout. Understandably, the developers didn't take too kindly to this. One of them re-uploads the trailer with the following title: Aeon Must Die, Truth in Description. If we follow the developer's advice, we find a link to a Dropbox with 17 folders containing detailed descriptions, audio files, screenshots, etc. Thus, our journey to uncover the truth begins, but first we have to go back. Between 2015-16, Alexei Nehoroshkin creates the story as well as the first design documents for AMD. To pursue the project, both Alexei and another person named Oleg quit their jobs. Invited by Alexei, the villainous Yaroslav also gets his position as CEO. Alexei himself gets to be the CCO, or Chief Creative Officer. Finally, Oleg takes on the role of CTO, Chief Technology Officer, of the newly established Limestone Games OÜ. The studio is founded with the following ideals in mind. Number 1 is a management consisting of 3 pillars: CEO, CCO, CTO, all of whom have the same rights and share equal amounts of responsibility. Number 2, all decisions in the management must be unanimous. Number 3, the CEO handles all the paperwork. And finally, CTO and CCO focus large amounts of their own time on development to make the project a reality. Saying all these ideas were broken would be dishonest. The last one was at least half right. To kickstart the project, Alexei asks a friend for a 10,000 euro loan. The debt is made in his name and was supposed to be paid back by the minute they got an investor. A fatal mistake. Despite investors being involved in the project, to this day not a single cent has been transferred, although Alexei asked Yaroslav multiple times to do so. Originally planned employees are not acquired for various unknown reasons, so Alexei finds a new artist who is illegally transferred from Russia on a tourist visa. After the tourist visa expires, the artist chooses to cut all ties with LSG due to unpaid work, stress and overall conflict with the CEO. The story is going to repeat itself in that regard. The studio goes on without an artist for many more months, leading to crunch time because all options are deemed too expensive by the CEO until the CCO finds a local artist willing to start. They're rookies, but recommended by the previously planned animator who had to pursue a more lucrative work. However, the animators prove completely unable to fulfill their tasks, leading to Alexei spending lots of his time correcting them while also learning animation. With his newly obtained skills, he soon starts to animate for the game. While other animators were hired, about 70 to 80% of all character animations in the game were created by Alexei. The animation work was done purely as overtime and was promised to be compensated by Yaroslav. Yaroslav didn't compensate him, but at least he calculated how much he owed him, over 100k euros before tax. Back then, Alexei didn't mind though. He was incredibly enthusiastic about his project, fulfilling the role of a game designer, art manager, art lead, narrative designer, lead writer and lead animator. The growing team accepts to work with a low salary and only the promise of raises in the future. Some have no choice due to financial troubles, others are just incredibly passionate about the game. Who needs raises anyway when you're promised a great family atmosphere instead? That's enough to pay bills, right? Pay attention. One of the rare cases of the CEO proving himself to be useful is about to unfold, when he brings in the first investor using family connections of all things. However, because Yaroslav is the antagonist of this story, it's not without a catch. Alexei must provide his only owned flat as collateral for the deal to proceed. Second, the deal consists of the 2 investors owning a redacted amount of the business. The investor will also get a redacted amount of all proceedings. Last but not least, the investors' financial profiles have nothing to do with IT, let alone art. Alexei finds the crediting deal unrealistic and asks if revenue sharing is an option. Alexei's lack of knowledge on how to run a business and his naive belief in what he believed at the time to be his friend Yaroslav will prove to bite him in the end as he desperately tries to save the project and deal with the growing debt to the first investor. He's left with no choice other than to agree on both points, trusting the investor and Yaroslav. This also foreshadows that slowly but surely Alexei is losing control over his own business. A light starts glowing at the end of the tunnel as the deal goes through and all three, CEO, CTO and CEO, receive equal voting rights. Shortly after, Alexei raises concerns about illegal activities such as unlicensed software, but Yaroslav's lack of action to secure funding for licenses stops him from running a legal business. CEO approaches CCO and CTO and proposes that they spend more time on their work and not sign all the new paperwork that's coming in, and let him have the ability to sign quote meaningless documents. After all, time is of the essence. Somehow still under a good impression of the CEO, Alexei agrees. Only problem, the document spans multiple pages without the necessary time to go through. Already being gullible because of the immense overtime, trusting and reassured by the CEO, the CCO signs the paper. This was another fatal mistake. In essence, this meaningless document made Yaroslav the sole representative, owner of the IP and member on the board of directors. All of this happens while constant unpaid crunch is being ignored because people are still having fun. All while the deadlines are completely impossible as the team is asked to deliver their first game within a year's time frame. Yaroslav especially took advantage of young developers. When asked, he knew they wouldn't say no to overtime, either out of fear or passion. It becomes apparent that cutting content is not enough. A publisher is needed. Even worse, around a quarter of people are transferred by the CEO to start a new project. A deliberate choice is made by the CEO to pay out smaller salaries officially and give out cash to evade taxes, saying he is risking his own livelihood and will go to prison for everyone to make sure all employees are comfortable with their low salaries. In truth, he's more worried on how to buy a Porsche. The project seems doomed to fail, but then another sliver of hope. Gamescom. Alexei gets approached by a publisher, Focus Home Entertainment. Yeah, this will end well. After 2 calls with members of the publisher, Alexei introduces the publisher to the rest of the management and negotiations between LSG and Focus begin. Before the negotiations are finalized, Alexei warns the CEO the deadline he's about to negotiate for Q2 2019 is impossible, and the team will have to work without weekends. From this moment on, every time Alexei even dares to mention impossible deadlines, he is threatened with the game's cancellation. The publisher likes the original plan for the game more than the cut content version, upon which it is decided to go back to the original narrative gameplay design. The team has to go through extreme crunch while the CCO is basically doing the CEO's job alongside his development duties. A new contract is signed with an investor for a redacted amount of euros. The investor happily organizes another loan to move to a new office and expand the team. The redacted amount of euros were eventually received, after which salaries remained mostly unchanged. Same goes for the software, which also remained unlicensed. The CCO loses access to the general state of the company's financials after Yaroslav refuses to update him. To this day, the CCO owns the company around 50k euros because of the crediting deal, as well as his flat being used as collateral, although it was promised to be released multiple times by now. CTO Oleg is supposed to port the game to consoles, which ends in entire sections being broken and having to be reworked by Alexei with his lead programmer. The atmosphere finally starts to change as there are constant shortages of budget that the CEO is very loud about, making you wonder where all the money went that wasn't spent on salaries or software. Don't forget, the new office was an extra investment on top of the redacted amount of euros received. Anyway, a second PM is hired but quits after 9 months because of impossible conditions and the CEO forcing them to exercise a culture of fear and manipulation. Something underlined by the following employees' statements. The management gave a direct order to harass people more so they are more stressed, because in the opinion of the CEO and CTO, most people cannot work at all without stress. I was told many times that I have to stress out 3D animator / art manager as much as possible, every half an hour if needed. I was asked to be a heartless bitch. If you're somehow still not satisfied with these statements, how about Yaroslav admitting it with his own words? This is work. I'm for the result. If for that I need to bump people every hour, I will do it. Most people cannot work without stress. Close parentheses, close parentheses, close parentheses. I already forgot what I wanted. For now, just kick them please. Without it, they are lazy ballast. The game project that was abandoned about half a year ago after the publisher decided to publish AMD is resurrected and given to a new team of people who are redirected from AMD. 3 members of the art team are let go during COVID. The decision is forced again on everyone with the pretense that budget needs to be saved and dates need to be changed. Growing suspicious, Alexei starts recording conversations with the CEO to make sure he's sane. The constant pressure, downplaying of developer skills, Yaroslav went as far as to lash out at workers in front of other employees, sketchy work contracts being assigned to jobs they weren't hired for, female employees receiving unwanted comments about how they should clothe themselves, preferably in a dress with high heels, especially from Yaroslav, who went even further by touching a female employee below the waist area and trying to engage with her in sexual conversations, employees being paid little to nothing, and a supposed lack of liquidity in the company, despite investments, brings the team together with Alexei, who did not have a vacation for an entire year and works every day for 12 to 16 hours like the rest of the team. It's about time, but they hire an attorney who starts digging through all the legal documents. While everything fell into place for Bobby Wrong one? No wait, I'm still confusing something. It's finally revealed to Alexei that Yaroslav owned the entire IP and power in the company. That also meant that everyone's extra efforts were legally non-existent, while harsh fines, countermeasures and liabilities were discovered to have been put in place on members of the team. Seeing through Yaroslav's mask for the first time, he goes to a meeting and requests papers for various things, including his overtime, demanding all decisions must be signed by all. Yaroslav lashes out at him twice because for the first time he is calm and asking the correct questions. Following this revelation, Alexei also confronts a shareholder of the company with the allegations. The investor confirms all suspicions. Surprisingly, he even goes as far as to deem the CEO a useless piece of shit. He calls him useless, but needed for the goal of the company. Many things are discussed and confirmed, like smearing campaigns by the CEO and CTO to investors. They were even going as far as to accuse the CCO of secretly looking for a new publisher. This already catastrophic situation is worsened by the fact that his parents are both in critical condition. His sick father deceased at this point and his mother requiring care and funds for stage 4 cancer treatment. A little detail management knows about. All they offer is another credit to get him even further into debt. He could of course take time off, it just wasn't paid and the deadlines didn't change. The investor also confirmed that the CEO is just his puppet in very clear terms. The job the CEO was most proud of, accounting of all things, is completely outsourced and he has no real tasks in the company other than quote, firing people and denying vacations. At least there's another light at the end of the tunnel as the investor seemingly agrees to work with the team to find a solution. Alexei returns to his team and together they write a letter to the shareholders. We, the undersigned, fully share Alexei's point of view that Yaroslav does not perform his direct duties, poisons the atmosphere in the company, practices an oppressive management style, leading to emotional burnout and deterioration in the quality of the games produced in the long run. We agree to speak with one voice in favor of a culture change, in particular and the company as a whole, by removing Yaroslav from his managerial position and bringing in a specialist on his front. The shareholders' answers are no. The main shareholders stated that he needs specifically Yaroslav in this position and there will be no restructuring in the company until the AMD project is completed. There can be no outside CEO in the company. The funds must always come only from the main shareholder and overall plan of yearly turnovers must be enforced much harder. Are you surprised that the second suggestion of an independent professional audit was called useless and detrimental? Same goes for the proposal to split the company into 2 sub-entities, one dealing with games and art and the other pursuing the CEO's new projects 1 through 5 and each working independently. 3 days later, the chief evil officer is holding a meeting with the employees. It was told that the future of the company is with the new simulation project, Project 5, which has just received a contract for a very big undertaking. Yaroslav made it clear that AMD must be finished as quickly as possible, and the entire team is welcome to work on VR transport simulators afterwards. At one point during the presentation, Yaroslav asks everyone to clap upon not receiving a positive reaction. Later on, the CCO receives a protocol of the previous meetings that he must sign. The paper has 4 points that are marked as discussed and agreed upon on the previous meetings. However, the recording of the meeting completely disproves that. The points that have definitely been discussed and agreed upon are as follows. The only delays with the game are art-based cinematics. This confirms a long-lasting narrative that the only problems with the project are connected to the CCO. 2. CCO cannot make any more decisions on the AMD up until completion and basically resigns his original rights and duties as creative director. 3. CCO must cease all outside contact with anyone or anything regarding AMD. And last one, CCO, CEO and CTO can receive their overtime pay only and after the game is released and becomes profitable enough, thus making it very clear there is no future for him or AMD. No revenue will be received and there is a small chance to get overtime by resigning everything that Alexei actually values. The before mentioned investor is also present at the meeting, however he completely ignores the conversation he had with Alexei before. Anyway, this was the final straw to break for the team to call it quits. The entire company was now in control of investors who clearly had no regard for art. With the help of their attorney, the team sends a letter on the 22nd of June 2020 to the publisher Focus Home Entertainment, with signatures of 12 former and current employees of LSG describing their situation in vague terms to not break NDA. Dear Redacted, the silence must be broken. We are the voices of those developers of Aeon Must Die who are brave enough to come forward. For the last 3 years, we have put all our strength and heart into the creation of this game. AMD was and still is our collective passion and dream that we want to bring into this world with the care and love it deserves. But due to an unbearable workplace environment created and nurtured by the management of the company, CEO, CTO and main shareholder, we are forced to end our relations with Limestone Games. We have tried to engage in dialogue with the management many times to try and re-establish the values and culture promised in the beginning of the project. Our attempts were deflected. The management did misguided attempts to defuse the situation, after which things only slowly got worse over the last year. Among the many transgressions of professional and human rights within the company, we would like to list the following. The letter ends with the following statements. Even if some of those who have signed this document did not suffer directly from all of the acts described, we were all witness to it happening to others. Having faced this common enemy and finding the collective courage to do this, we are stronger than ever, but even the thought of spending another second in the company is uncomfortable to all and completely unbearable to some of us. Our resignation letter is delivered to the CEO and main shareholder. All current and former members of the team that have signed this document are willing to establish communication with you individually or together to provide more information and proof of these accusations if necessary. The management directly and inherently makes creating a product that can survive on the marketplace impossible. The administration inarguably prevents the game from reaching the quality needed for a publisher's investment to be fruitful. Please hear us after we have been denied a voice for so long. Art and creativity must not fall to blunt and unpathologic abuse. Basic human rights and decency is not something anyone should beg for. All we want is to create good games. At the same time, the CEO received a signed letter of 6 resignations. Mikhail Hav and Igor Pushka, both of them signed the petition against Yaroslav, claimed to stay at the company due to bad financial states. As expected, the CEO refuses to accept the documents, so the team leaves them on his desk and sends copies per email. The wait for a response from the publisher begins. Turns out they wouldn't have to wait too long for a half-assed response. Exactly 1 day after the resignations, they receive a message from the clown evil officer for Focus Home Entertainment that they're looking into it. That's it. No questions, no request to provide additional evidence, literally nothing. For all that said, the public holidays in Estonia begin. The employees are finally able to take a so-called break. Apparently it's used to relieve stress. Everything is absolutely fine, is what I would say if it wasn't for the call-in from Limestone Games about the completion of the work contract. Each member of the team is supposed to come into office in a different time frame. They decide to show up as a collective. Confronted by the Chief Technology Officer Oleg, who somehow obtained the letter they addressed to the publisher, he tries to make the letter look invalid and tells them they won't have to do anything until their contract gets terminated. The next day the CEO starts messaging and calling the team, asking them about their whereabouts. 28th of June, 6 employees receive a warning for breaching their contract. 29th, attorney of the team sends a letter to the CEO and CTO stating that he is the official representative of 10 former employees and that from this moment on, all communications between LSG and the team must be conducted through him. The attorney has requested explanations of unlawful activity and asked to stop harassment. Additionally, to start negotiations on due overtime pay for employees. The letter was of course left without an answer, because Yaroslav was very busy writing another threat letter instead to the people who gave their signatures in the publisher letter. In general, he talks a lot about being loyal to your employer and keep company secrets, i.e. misconduct, well, a secret. Finally and most importantly, he mentions that their creativity allows them to make money by producing a product that is in demand, as if his priorities weren't clear enough before. Biggest problem, however, is the letter itself, written in Russian, therefore some employees can't even understand it. This is unlawful in Estonia, and the requested English version, the company language by the way, never comes to fruition. The letter also contains the first instance of the CEO positioning himself publicly as the sole owner of the IP and representative of the company. Afterwards, representatives and employees of the studio started to contact outsourced employees, spreading misinformation and encouraging them not to work with Alexei. Any person that the administration possibly could get a hold of who had ties to the members of the team that quit were used to contact them and pleaded the CEO's case, and became Yaroslav's messenger for more veiled threats, explaining how mistaken the team was. Even the CEO's family members approached some employees, creating a heavy emotional situation for them. Let's leave Yaroslav behind for a second though, because Focus is finally here to save the day, by telling Alexei they need a shortened version of the trailer for the State of Play. What? Did you actually expect them to ask about the accusations? Because I sure as heck framed it that way. Anyway, Alexei can comply, even if he wanted to, because he got locked out of his work accounts by none other than Limestone. Meanwhile, on the 1st of July, the majority shareholder of Limestone Games, Maxim Velitsko, and CTO Oleg incorporated a new company, sharing the same address with LSG. At first the name of the company was Limestone Simulations, but at the end of spring 2021 it was changed to Varkas Solutions OÜ. This new company by Maxim, with Yaroslav as CEO, continues the development of transport simulators and has a lot of AR, VR, blockchain bullshit buzzwords on their website. To me this looks like a lot of thin air. To the EU and all of these guys, however, this looks like something they should invest in apparently. Maybe it's time someone tells them it's not the best idea to fund criminals. The first day of July arrives, and with it another letter at Focus's doorstep, written by 2 outsourced employees. No reply follows. Sounds familiar to me. You know what else sounds familiar? Focus reassuring Alexei they're aware of the situation, but doing anything except for helping the team. This time it's different though. A day after the reassurance, a legal representative of the publisher reaches out to the team's lawyer, asking of all possible things what the team was striving to achieve. I don't know, you tell me, maybe not being subjected to all sorts of misconduct. Maybe. Besides this obvious fact, the team also stated they are willing to finish the game on their own terms, even going as far as to state they would finance the rest of development themselves, nor are they asking for the return of the IP or overtime pay. The tunnel starts to glow again, I guess, as Focus is interested in the offer, though the LED would almost burn through on the 6th of July, reason being the email the outsourced employees sent to Focus. There may have not been any reply by the big greedy corporation, but there was one by the small greedy corporation. It offered them contracts and payments. The contracts offered are backdated and contain contradictory information to what was offered in the first place. As expected, Limestone also wanted to pay the minimal amount possible for their work to get all their files. However, this whole offer also exposes that Focus is leaking emails to Limestone. The letter by the outsourced employees was sent via a completely fresh email address. Nobody at Limestone could have known about it, unless someone would have sent them the letter containing the fresh address. Exactly this email was used though by Yaroslav to contact them shortly after they reached out to the publisher with this scam of an offer. All of a sudden, a new employee named Alina, who never worked at Limestone before, calls one of the outsourced developers on his personal phone number to ask for his signature. It is claimed that LSG was sorting through their files and have coincidentally stumbled across one of the motion designer's contracts, and to receive any money, he has to do a little formality and sign the document. Should probably read the fine print on that one. 3 weeks have now passed since Focus was informed about the situation. All this time, Yaroslav continues to ignore the attorney of the team and still tries to contact them personally. Again, starts threatening and coerce members on the team through former and current employees, family members and friends. 13th of July 2020, 6 ex-employees receive an official notification regarding a forced termination of their employment contracts, although they already handed in their resignation letters and were a week away from fulfilling those exact contracts. The reasons for termination, as was stated by LSG, were disloyalty to the management, failure to perform work duties, completely unrelated. This is what was asked from a single former developer, causing harm to the company and direct competition, probably by offering to finish the game to Focus. Again, the only way Limestone Games could have known about the offer to finish the game was directly from the publisher. Employees are threatened with fines, receive a black mark on their work record effective immediately, creating big problems in finding new jobs, and are asked to submit work basically for free out of fear to get more fines. The team also received salaries with puzzling calculations and no explanation of why they even received the sum. The vacation money and the salaries are dumped as a single amount. Coincidentally, less than 24 hours after the team's termination, the lawyer is finally able to speak with Focus. The publisher states that they are ready to work together with the developers and that their evidence is needed for Focus to break the contract with Limestone. For its part, the team asked to at the very least freeze the production of the game until the end of proceedings, and if it is possible to cancel the viewing of the trailer or to at the very least remove the Limestone Games logo from it. Keep in mind, this was done due to the fact that the trailer production was not paid for and neither LSG nor Focus held the IP rights to it. The team even sends a scene from the trailer without the logo to Focus in case they decide to give the team a sign of hope. In the meantime, on the 21st of July, without the team's knowledge, Yaroslav files a complaint with the Estonian Labour Committee about the supposed misconduct of ex-employees. The team's lawyer sends the 3rd letter in total to LSG now. None of them so far have been answered. Limestone is asked to provide proper calculations of salaries withheld, vacation compensation and overtime. 2 days later, Focus receives all the information regarding the violations and a short summary from the attorney. Focus may have slipped again because on the very same day, which also turns out to be the last day before a monetary fine would have been placed on LSG, the lawyer receives a long-awaited reply from Yaroslav. He writes that he knows nothing about the 2 previous letters, all compensation is valid and that he's still waiting for the return of the keys to the office and all the unfinished software. In the same message, Yaroslav informs the lawyer about the complaint filed with the Labour Committee. In the aftermath of this exchange, Limestone went straight back to ignoring the attorney of the team. We're pretty much back at the start, the eve of the trailer screening. Having received no answer, the team makes a last effort attempt to contact Focus themselves. During the evening hours, a reply comes that the head of legal would like to speak with Alexei immediately. It's either pick up the phone right now and talk to us, or the opportunity is gone. What followed, quite frankly, shocked me. Not only does the head of legal state that she had no time to familiarize with the evidence, but from what she did check, everything is fine. Instead, the team should be thinking about what is good for the game, and that the smooth release of the trailer will be a huge promotional boom. They're working together with Limestone and it will be great for both parties. Somehow she forgot that she's talking with the only party that won't profit from this happening. On the morning of the 6th of August, the lawyer sends a cease and desist for the trailer screening to Focus, with a compensation penalty of 5 million euros. Despite it all, the trailer is shown. The head of legal states that the rights for the trailer were transferred verbally and threatened to sue in case of publication. 7th of August 2020, a statement by Focus is released, stating for the first time publicly that they're looking into it. Took them about as long as you expect a company of this scale to write 3 sentences. By the way, where's the yellow background, Focus? Why is it written in a way that you have just heard about it when the team reached out to you months ago? Questions over questions. It's almost like this is a PR statement. Suddenly, Focus representatives try hard to circumvent Alexi's attorney and try to get in touch personally. Only the lawyer responds to their attempts. 12th of August 2020, IGDA launches an independent investigation into the team's claims. IGDA is the Estonian chapter of the International Game Developers Association. Important, this is not a full union and Limestone employees didn't cooperate with them because the lawyer advised against it. Gee, I wonder why. Though this is not the actual reason for the lack of cooperation. The team did talk to a representative of IGDA. She stated among other things that she knew nothing about the situation until today and has yet to speak with Limestone. She insisted that the team should file an appeal with the Labor Committee as soon as possible, otherwise the team might go to jail for slander. She also persuaded the team to not file a lawsuit against Limestone Games since it was not beneficial for either side, and that she was ready to act as a mediator in the dispute. From her words, IGDA would help the team with all the necessities and cover their legal expenses. She claimed at least a dozen times that in order to do a thorough investigation, she needs access to the full amount of evidence that was sent by the team to the publisher. The whole meeting leaves them questioning IGDA's intentions, mainly because slander is not a criminal offense in Estonia, but also because of the unhealthy interest in the full unredacted info. On the very next morning, the team's suspicions are pretty much confirmed, as they are bombarded with messages from the local game dev community warning them to not trust the IGDA representative Maria. It turns out that earlier that day she visited the Limestone office, contradicting her own words. Also allegedly she knew about what was going on in the company for a while now because she was friends with Yaroslav. A reply follows. Since there are conditions attached to getting the full evidence, IGDA will not be able to help the developers in any way. Fraudwares notes on Twitter that the Aeon Must Die trademark is for some reason not even registered. Spoiler alert, this is still the case. Was there ever even a serious plan to release the game, or was it just a convenient money laundering scheme? One day later, Limestone Games releases its own press release to defend itself. In it, Limestone Games states they will talk to authorities to disprove the accusations, more importantly saying that lying about such things can be punished under Estonian law. I think I've heard that somewhere before. The claims of IP theft are swept under the rug by saying that the employer owns their employees' work, completely ignoring the actual accusation that most people weren't paid for their work, therefore the work doesn't belong to Limestone. The sheer irony of using hardcore game development as your slogan in a statement denying such an environment is almost indescribable. Can't wait for the new Activision slogan. How about Activision, home of sexism, or Ubisoft, where creativity doesn't belong, but sexism does. Or Riot Games, just sex. On the 13th of August, the developers are summoned to the hearing in the Labor Committee. At the same time, Alexei is being contacted by Yaroslav's lawyer, who proposes to hold negotiations with the key component being silence in the media. The team also finds out that Yaroslav's username on his PC is Lord. This brings us to today's sponsor, Unestablished Site. An offer to buy out their rights to AMD is also presented to the team. The price is at least 4 times more than before the scandal. A great offer for the people who are already on the brink of financial ruin. The team accepts the offer to start negotiations, though some of them just want to hand the case to the understaffed Estonian police. So a decision is made to draw a red line. Included in it are the following bullet points. We can never work with Limestone Games again. We will never take back any of our public statements. Yaroslav has to make a public apology and admit to what he has done. Alexei will sell his shares of Limestone Games to CEO and CTO, giving each 25% of the company. All legal connections of all the team members have to be completely dropped from both shareholders and LSG. All claims on the team have to be withdrawn. Focus follows up with a call to the team's lawyer. All in all, they agree with the conditions, although for every point the team proposed, there were several buts. The previously negotiated mediation is broken on the 17th of August by Limestone Games. An Estonian outlet publishes an interview with LSG where the management and current employees state there isn't a lick of truth in the accusations made by ex-developers. Remarkably, there are people absolutely unknown to the departed team in the group photo published. Noteworthy are two people among the interviewed in the article, Mikhail Hav and Igor Pushka. Remember, both of them signed the first petition about Yaroslav's resignation and promised to follow the team after their financial troubles were resolved. And resolve it did! In the summer of 2020, right after the developers left the company, the average salary inside the firm suddenly tripled. The biggest salary before that was around half of what loyal LSG employees earned in the critical months of 2020. Limestone's excuse for the interview? It was given before the conditions of the mediation were agreed upon. Meanwhile, Yaroslav fires his third lawyer just as a compromise seemed likely. The third lawyer that was let go privately informs the team that his former client does not want a peaceful resolution of the issue. The negotiations seemingly continue, and once again the mediation is disrupted by Yaroslav. Alexei receives a message from a gamesindustry.biz journalist, who informs him that he spoke with Yaroslav on the day prior. The team understands that the mediation with someone so untrustworthy is impossible, so they make another proposal to end it once and for all. This was followed by a call from Focus, where they informed the team that they are going to work with LSG, and a lawsuit is coming due to the breach of the NDA. Going into a legal battle with a huge rich company is not something the team can do. They decide to start working on a new personal project instead, and at the same time defend the truth. On the 3rd of September, with the help of a new team member, a new business was incorporated, Mishura Games. On top of that, the team turns to a criminal lawyer, and after examining the evidence, she reports that a case can be filed on several charges. Having familiarized with the testimonies of the former employees, the Estonian Labor Committee also ruled that the accusations from Limestone Games are unfounded. LSG as a compromise withdraw their claims from the employees, write the correct date of the end of employment, remove the black marks from the registry, and finally correct the employees' titles, reflecting what they actually did in the company. On the 30th of September, the lawyer calls the person in charge of LSG, majority shareholder Maxim Velitsko, whether he is planning to release Alexei's apartment. Maxim states the debt has not been fully paid, even though he is not aware how much there is left to pay. So the lawyer asks to see the documents which could shed light on the amount of money left to be paid. His request is denied. Left with no other choice, the team files petitions with several government bodies to initiate a criminal case in early October. The tax police begin their investigation. Tax audits begin in the studio. All of a sudden, LSG crawls back to the negotiation table. On the 26th of October, Yaroslav's new lawyer, the fifth one, discussed the main issue with the team, the transfer of Alexei's shares. LSG is allegedly on the verge of bankruptcy. Their only lifeline is the money coming in from Focus, and that money could dry up any day now. Therefore, they are in no position to pay any significant amount for Alexei's shares. Maxim doesn't want to buy Alexei's shares, as he admitted it is only a minority stake with no controlling options, unlike what was claimed to the press, of course. Instead, Limestone is making a different offer that they will restructure the loan to a third person nominated by them. Through this, the apartment will be released as collateral, meaning Alexei would not have these liabilities anymore and is able to keep his apartment. In return, they wish to receive his shares. Also from that point on, neither party shall publicly criticize and embarrass each other. The catch is that in the likely event of LSG's bankruptcy, Maxim wants his money back and the apartment will be used to enforce such claims. LSG is not against compensating overtime hours, however under no circumstances are they able to compensate 5 or 6-figure amounts. If they're going to demand such amounts via court, then bankruptcy is likely. On the meeting, Limestone Games informs the lawyer that no money was paid towards the debt in which the apartment was collateral. It is also possible that Alexei will have to pay the entire amount of money loaned by the investor to the company, which essentially means the entirety of development costs for the game. And Limestone Games' lawyer is allowed to legally enforce that through Alexi's apartment. The original agreement was that 3 managing officers, Alexi being one of them, are responsible for the debt. From the documentation available, Alexi only signed one of the debt agreements, and the other was signed by none other than Yaroslav, since at that point he already controlled the company and did not need anyone's approval. The team makes their last proposal. 1. Flat debt, everything is dropped by Limestone. 2. Overtime claims are not submitted to labor court. 3. Alexi's 17% bought out based on real product cost. 4. In the case of all points met, Alexi can also make a public statement about Maxime and his involvement that will be very favorable to his public image. 5. No guarantees or anything from Yaroslav. The team's actions will solely depend on what we hear him talking about or doing. The very next day, Limestone course corrects. LSG's lawyer informs the team that they will accept the last offer made by their attorney. However, they need time to gather the funds in order to buy Alexi's stake in the firm. Meanwhile, the team focuses on their own project. On the 31st of October, their work accumulates in a teaser for the new game Immortal by Mishura Games. They deal with the documents for running the studio, create concepts, write game design documents, look for funding, everything without any compensation. Some people have to do odd jobs to make ends meet. Later production ramps up with 8 employees plus several remote contractors. An interesting event occurs. One of the people who gave Limestone Games their seed money of 10,000 euros to start working on AMD visits the LSG office. In the meeting, Yaroslav says that he knows nothing about any money alone, that Alexi is a drug addict who started quarrels with everyone, and Yaroslav himself is forced to give testimony to the tax police, and that Sony has retracted their support for the game. Finally, on the 1st of February, after a long wait, the team receives a new compromise. Overall, the proposal looks wild. Starting with the fact that LSG is demanding transfer of IP, which is a sign that their previous statements of no IP issues were outright lies. Anything beneficial for the team is contingent on LSG releasing Aeon Must Die, but the team understands very well that there is no guarantee at all that the game is released under the same name, by the same company. On the other hand, the team must hand over everything up front. Other insane requirements include Alexi not being part of a board of directors for 3 fucking years. Both parties can smear each other. Every breach causes a 10,000 euro fine. The team must retract their allegations of sexual harassment, abuse, IP theft and pirated software. The LSG lawyer informs that the compromise must be reached by June, otherwise he has direct orders to act more aggressively. When asked what that is supposed to mean, there is a clarification. Court. After that, LSG disappeared and came back with a completely new compromise. Soon after, one of the Mishura Games investors is persuaded to meet and talk with Maxime Velitsko without the team's knowledge or consent. Despite the investor's best intentions, all he gets from the meeting are personal threats to the team. If the attacks on Limestone Games do not cease, I will use my resources to destroy them. The team of course was dumbfounded at what attacks exactly means. They were silent and minding their own business. Just like clockwork, LSG changes their legal representation again. The team is informed that Maxime will now be handling the negotiations and allegedly that Yaroslav is no longer involved. Nobody told Focus to just shut the fuck up already, leading to 2 more tweets on the Aeon Must Die Twitter account. They tried to build a border between them and Limestone. They deny imposing crunch onto developers. Technically, they're not even lying. It's true, they never specifically asked for people to crunch. They just didn't change the deadline until it was too late. Now it gets spicy though. Focus goes on to claim that there are 3 different parties that couldn't find any evidence to support the team's claims. Let's have a look at these, shall we? Focus claims to have hired 2 independent law firms to look at the case. However, they never released the findings of these investigations that definitely happened. So it's a claim on top of a claim. The last party is the IGDA, which I don't even have to debunk because they came out denying ever reaching a conclusion themselves. 14th of October 2021, Aeon Must Die releases despite all controversy to very little success. Every good video must die. See what I did there? So all that's left to say is consider looking into the new game they're developing over at Mishura Games and don't buy Aeon Must Die.